this sense of entitlement going away and the sense of humility coming in is the main turning point. My success can only be defined by the success of the team. Unless you're working, you're successful, you're earning, it's only then you can provide for your family. I have realized now that it's very, very important to understand the purpose of anything. Always consider that instead of path to success, it is a path, of success. You are no longer able to motivate yourself. My advice is look around and find someone else to motivate you. You need to have the big picture or the end game, so as to speak, in your mind. I think for me, the biggest sacrifice that I made was learning to say no to many things early on. My biggest motivator was my ego. Time management is really the most important thing. Living a balanced and successful life is to create a better society through architectural products.
Hi everyone, this is Disha and today we are interviewing Mr. Rajat Agarwal, who is the MD of Bhoruka Extrusions, a YKK AP company. Today, let's hear about his journey and his experiences. Were you a brilliant student or were you a backbencher? And when did the turning point towards your success happen, sir?
I was not always a brilliant student. I was a typical backbencher. And the main turning point happened right after I graduated from my university in the US. And this was at my first job. Because I always had a sense of entitlement that, as soon as I graduate, I'm going to find my first job. But it took me more than 20 to 25 interviews. I had to, and the first time I finally got the job that I wanted, this was after emailing him almost 6 Sundays, like every Sunday. And he finally called me and he said, the only reason you have this interview is not because you're smart, because I was not at a great university. But he said, the main reason is because you persisted, right? Wow. You kept contacting me, even though I didn't reply. And so I want to see what kind of a person does this, because this was a consulting business. And he said, we need people like you to follow up, for the consulting assignments. And everything went well. And then I asked him, when do I start? And this interview was at around 7, 8 p.m. in the evening. And it was a Friday, right? So I thought he will ask me to start next week or after 2 weeks. And he said, you start right now, right? And I was like, I just came for an interview and it's Friday evening and I have other plans. He said, I don't care. If you want this job, you start right now. So I said, I don't even have a laptop. He said, I have 2 laptops. I'm going to assign you one right now. And you sit in the living room and you start working. So, that sudden shock that I'm no longer 100% in control of my life anymore. Because as a student, you feel like you're completely in control, right? But when you start applying for jobs and you start meeting strangers and visiting strangers and suddenly someone is telling you to do something that you don't want to, but now you realize you have to, right? So that realization was the beginning of the turning point in my career, where it completely shattered my, all the beliefs that I was holding so long, and you realize it's no longer true. So I think for me, it was my first job in the US that did that.
I think it's the lesson we learn from this is to be ready for anything at any time.
Yeah. And in fact, before I got this first job, my real first job was a door-to-door salesman in the US while I was doing interviews. So I got a job doing door-to-door sales, which I did for 2 months. And that, teaches you immense amount of humility, right? Because you visit some homes and you're just ringing the bell randomly, and some people don't open the door. Some open the door, but they shut the door on your face and they're like, don't come here. And some, of course, there are some people who do open the door, do invite you in, do offer you to sit down and have a coffee or juice. But, I think this sense of entitlement going away and the sense of humility coming in is the main turning point.
Wonderful, sir. And since you weren't necessarily a brilliant student, how can an average student become a CEO, sir?
So, I think if you look at the definition of what a CEO should be doing or what defines a successful CEO,
Right.
a CEO's success is basically the success of all the team members under her or him, right?
Right. Yeah.
So if I'm CEO of an organization, my success can only be defined by the success of the team
Right.
that I'm leading, right? There's no other way to define a CEO's success. And you can only become a successful CEO if you have the right skills to motivate, right, the people around you, lead the people around you. So I think for a student to become a CEO, they need to understand what does a CEO really mean, right? Some people think, oh, a CEO means I'll just attend some meetings, I'll sit back, I'll listen to some presentations, and at the end of it, I'll give my feedback. And what I say is final. Or they think it's going to be a flashy life with big cars and boardroom meetings and presentations, but it's not about that, right? It's really about motivating and building a team around you. And I think the most important thing is to have that emotional quotient, right? Because you need to be able to connect, or rather, you need to be able to have others connect to you, right? So I think that is most important to become a CEO.
So the whole trend of EQ is better than IQ. Do you support that, sir?
I do fully support it, provided the IQ is at some base level, right? I mean, we cannot just say that EQ is, any IQ is okay as long as EQ is great.
Right.
But assuming your IQ is at an average level, I definitely think EQ starts becoming more and more important. At least up until now, till the influx of AI. But up until now, it is a human-to-human relationship that we are living in, right? So we just cannot ignore EQ.
Wonderful, sir. What is the best advice someone gave you, sir?
So the best advice that someone gave me was my father's brother. He lives in Delhi. And every time I used to visit his house, he always told me the same thing, right? He said, according to him, there are 5 ways to prioritize your life. So he used to always tell me, first is country, right? Second is work. Third is family. 4 is society. And then last is self, right? And he's been telling me this since I was young, but I never really understood the importance of it until I reached a point in my career where I had limited time, but a lot of demands on my time, and I had to start prioritizing things, right? So for example, do I attend a class? I mean, do I attend an office presentation that day, or do I attend an important family event, right? So how do you decide between these two? And I subconsciously kept going back to these 5 things, which are in the order of importance, right? So I said, oh, work trumps family. I mean, some people might disagree with it, but later I can explain why. Because, unless you're working, you're successful, you're earning, it's only then you can provide for your family. You cannot provide for your family by doing nothing, right? So I think this advice, this yardstick of being able to easily prioritize the various decisions in life of, country, work, then family, then society and self, was the best advice I ever got. And one of the first articles that I ever wrote was also on this.
Okay. So, but your opinion on work being better than family time and self, this thing, what do you think about that?
See, I mean, for me personally, I was brought up in a business family. I'm the 3rd generation. My grandfather started the entire business group that we belong to. So we always grew up with this notion that work takes precedence over everything else other than country, right? Which means that never do any work which harms your country. Whatever you do must be aligned with what the country needs. Once you have that figured, then what you do next is only based on, family, of course, society, self, but you can't do anything in those domains unless you are working, right? Because this is the input. So I look at work as the input, right? I need to work, I need to earn, I need to be successful, right? I need to have a social standing because of that. And then I can contribute time, money, energy to my family and to myself. So, of course, there are exceptions, right? For example, if you count health as self, I would never say that work trumps health, which I will cover maybe later in the conversation. But of course, health is one of those exceptions.
It's quite the different answer to this question. Actually.
Yes.
A lot of people say family is priority.
Yeah, most of my answers will be different.
Wonderful, sir. We'd love to hear it. What would you tell your younger self, sir?
So I think, two things. One would be before starting something, one of the key decision criteria should be to figure out the purpose of that activity, right? Maybe I took a lot of decisions in my youth without fully understanding the purpose behind taking that decision, right? So I have realized now that it's very, very important to understand the purpose of anything. So that would be my first advice to myself. The second would be just to create more options, right? So I think that by limiting myself, so for example, when I got into my university in the US, because of the academic calendar, what happens is you get in before your 12th results are out, right? Because the timing is like that. So I was like, I've already got into one university, which means I don't really now need to excel at my 12th, right? But not realizing that anything can happen to the offer that I have. And I limited my option, right? So I think one important thing is never limit your options. Try and explore as many avenues. And this you can do only when you're young, right? You can't really do it as you get older. But keep multiple options available with you and then decide. So I think these two would be the main advice I would give to youngsters.
Wonderful, sir. What is the mistake you see students making today that will affect their careers in the future? Would you say limiting their options is also one of them?
Yeah, definitely limiting their options is one of them. The other mistake that I see students, making today, and when I say students, I also mean freshers who are just joining the workforce, right? I think they come with a greater degree of this sense of entitlement, right? And they come with a greater degree of this notion that, I am joining this firm and this firm is, I am doing in favor to this firm or to this role, right? But they need to come with the mindset that I need to figure out how I can now contribute, right? So I think that sense of entitlement is one thing I would request all students not to have. And the second important thing is, again, what I always keep saying is to really understand the purpose, right? For example, which firm are they applying for, or what role they are looking at in the future, and how that aligns, and what is the reason behind it. So I think these two would be my main advice to students.
Was your path to success easy, sir? Was it luck? Was it hard work? Or was it a combination of both?
So, here the first thing that we have to look at is, how do we define success? So I have always considered that instead of path to success, it is a path, of success, right? It is a road that you never get off. Because if you imply that success is a destination, then we are assuming that once we reach it, our job is done and there's nothing next. So I have always viewed this as a path of success and something that we always have to stay on. Once we agree to that assumption, the next question that becomes is, what is required to stay on this path, right? Then things like hard work or perseverance or discipline and so many things come into play. And again, all of these things have to now be permanent in nature, right? It's not a short-term project that, I achieved success, my job is done, now I can, relax. So I think my advice to all students out there and also all early professionals would be that do not consider success as a destination, but please consider it as a path, as a journey.
Wonderful. Did you ever feel like giving up on your path of success? And what kept you going when you did, sir?
I work out frequently at the gym, and I also watch certain motivational videos about, sports professionals and so on and so forth. And, one message that has always stuck with me is that a professional is not someone who performs when he or she is motivated, right? So a professional is someone who performs even when they are not motivated, right? Because a professional only looks at the result. So I think that mindset is what is most important.
But it does take a toll on our mind if we are constantly working. So how would you say that we should be motivated or try to be motivated when we are not?
So, I mean, see, when you consider yourself a professional, of course, it's good to get the results when you are motivated. But when you are not motivated, what I do in my case, I start thinking about the others that I'm influencing, right? So, for example, what influence does my activity have on my family? You know, what influence will my actions have on the family members of those employees or team members who are then dependent on me, right? And then they start motivating you. So when you are no longer able to motivate yourself, my advice is look around and find someone else to motivate you. Right?
That's wonderful advice. I guess that always works.
Hopefully, it should work.
Wonderful, sir. What was your biggest obstacle and how did you overcome it, sir?
So, I mean, very honestly speaking, for me personally, my biggest obstacle was health. Right? Because, like I said, I was studying in the US, then I worked there for many years, and I was there for almost 8 years. And during university, I used to be very active in sports. I was captain of my squash team in my university.
Oh, wow.
I played state level squash tournaments, right? Wow. But then as soon as I stopped university and started working, you know, all the time dedicated to sports and to fitness suddenly disappeared, right? So this was at the beginning of my career. And this then started leading to various health complications because you're still eating the way you are, you're still living the lifestyle the way you were used to. But you know, your sports and your activities suddenly stops once you are out of college, right? So this then starts having a detrimental effect on your health. And the exact same thing happened to me. And by the time I came back to India and started working here, I started having various health issues, right? So I think for me, the biggest obstacle was health. And the reason for that, again, was that, you know, we don't look at success holistically. We say, oh, just becoming a CEO, for example, is success, right? But success cannot be just excelling in one domain of your life, right? You need to excel in all domains. And for this, you need to have, you know, good health, good physical and mental well-being. So I think for me, that was the biggest obstacle. And then, of course, I did overcome it through discipline, through focus, through time management and other ways.
So you would agree that having something other than just work is also important in life?
I mean, you have to, right? Because like I said, work is the input, right? But if you just work and let's say you earn a lot of money, because young students are always looking at earning a lot of money, right? But what do you do with that money, right? What does that money then translate into, right? So you need to have the big picture or the, you know, end game, so as to speak, in your mind. So it's not just about work, but work is an important part of it. But then what else do you do with your life, right? How do you give back to the society? How do you give back to your family? You know, so all of these things you have to look at.
People tend to dedicate their entire lives to work, so which is why I asked that question.
I mean, I have dedicated my entire life to work as well. But when I say the entire life, it is for the duration, but not for the sum of all things, right? So there are many other parts to life other than work.
What sacrifices did you make to reach your current position, sir? Since you said that you prioritized work more than family in a certain case, so would you say family was a sacrifice?
Maybe I should not say that. But I think for me, the biggest sacrifice that I made was, you know, learning to say no to many things early on, right? So for example, earlier on in our conversation, I said that one of the best advice that I got was this yardstick to make decisions by and figure out when to say yes to a certain activity or a certain person and when to say no. So I think sacrifices have been made and it is important to make. But again, the theme is balance, right? You need to balance out these sacrifices because if you go on making sacrifices in just one domain, it will backfire.
Right.
So if you make a sacrifice today related for something related to work, tomorrow it might have to be family. On the next occasion, it might have to be society, right? So, or on the fourth time, it might have to be self, right? So I think sacrificing is important, and the hard thing is to, again, maintain focus, say no to a lot of things, but make it balanced. So I think that balanced sacrifice is what is more important than just outright sacrifice.
Wonderful. What are 3 unique skills that made you successful, in your opinion, sir?
So, like if you are studying marketing or other subjects, so we have these things called, the 4 P's of marketing, right? Price, payment, product, promotion, so on and so forth. So I have thought about this question a lot of times. And for me, it's been 3 things, right? So one, again, I start everything by now, hopefully you can guess, is purpose, right? So the first P for me is purpose. The second P for me, again, is perseverance, right? You just keep doing it till you get what you want. I mean, hard work, right? And the third thing is, when you have the perseverance, you have the purpose, and the third is patience. Because you are not going to get what you want the moment you want it, right? Be it health, be it work, be it relationship, be it social status. So you need to have patience. And these 3 P's then gives you power, right? So I've always in my mind said, okay, these 3 P's then gives you the 4th P, which is power. And what really is power, right? Power is not that you can influence somebody else's decisions, or you direct someone to do, because some students might feel that, oh, once you're a CEO, you can just say, oh, you do this, you do that, you come here, right? But real power comes from these 3 P's of purpose, perseverance, and patience.
That's unique. Again, another thing. I think this is something that a lot of people can live by and follow, because it's easier.
I would hope so.
Yes, thank you, sir, for that advice. What problems is your company solving, and what are the real life situations where your company's products are being used?
So my company, which is Bhoruka Extrusions, belongs to the YKK AP group, which stands for Architectural Products. And the purpose of YKK AP group, which we state on our website, is to create a better society through architectural products, right? So what problem are we solving? We are trying to create a better living environment, be it protecting the residents from, water or wind or noise pollution or excessive rattling of the windows, or, to put it in simpler terms, the quality of doors and windows that we get in residential apartments currently are not very high. Unless you are building a specific own house, then of course you can afford to spend whatever you want, right? But we are talking about apartment buildings. There, the developer does not choose a high-end product because it's going to cost them a lot, and they are not the ones living in it, right? But if it's an individual home, of course you spend. So because we say our mission is to create a better society, and you can influence a society by increasing the numbers, right? And that comes from tower projects, apartment projects, and mass infrastructure projects.
Wonderful, sir. And what would you say is the future trend of your industry, sir? The aluminium industry.
So the future trend for architectural products worldwide is, I would say, same as most other industries, which is, how do you have a lesser footprint on the environment? How do you control the carbon emissions? How do you become more sustainable? How do you become more environmental friendly? But at the same time, how do you start building in technology to things we never thought of, right? So, for example, one of the windows that we have now developed in Japan, the entire window works not just as a window, but as a multi-purpose object, right? So, for example, you can have a FaceTime through the window. You can use your face to open and unlock the window. Your kids can scribble homework on the window, right? So we are now looking at how do we get traditional products like a door window and, supercharge it with technology.
Even Windows got facial recognition now.
Windows and our doors, right? And I was in Japan 2 months ago at our own product center, and we have now launched a product for Amazon deliveries.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So it's a box near your door and auto opens when an Amazon delivery person comes in and scans the barcode, and then they can place the box and then it closes,
This
right?
prevents theft as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. And in all of these developments, do you think AI plays a role, or would it play a role somewhere?
As of today, it has just started. I mean, machine learning has been there all along for, I think, better half of the previous decade.
Right.
But now, machine learning is getting less and less media attention, and whether it is machine learning or not, everything is now being classified as AI. Right? So I think as things stand today, it has already started to shape our products, our decision, and most importantly, the processes. So, I mean, there is no way anybody can say that AI will not have a major impact on the world or any business or any product going forward.
Right. Wonderful, sir. Could you share a few exciting developments that your company is working on, and could you also speak about your corporate social responsibility, sir?
So exciting developments, like I just said, we have a window that you can pretty much scribble on, talk to. It shows you the weather of the day. It can show you that before you step out of the door, it can tell you, like, is it raining outside or is it too hot outside? And if it is raining, it shows you a picture of an umbrella, right? So it reminds you that please pick up your umbrella before you go. So we do have exciting products like these. The other exciting thing we have now is in terms of installation of the product, right? So YKK AP has been working with Carnegie Mellon University on developing robots to actually install the facade of a building, right? Because as we know, cost of labor is increasing worldwide. And as the costs get higher and higher, it's going to be more and more difficult to employ huge labors for anything. So we are also working on robotics for installation of doors and windows.
And what's your opinion on robots replacing people worldwide, causing a job crisis and all those things?
So I think this relates to some of the other topics that we have discussed. I just think any technology, which when launched, at first poses an immediate threat because people, or not and poses, but poses an perceived threat, right? Because people don't really understand the impact that the technology will have on them. And it's true, right? The moment a new technology is launched, there is disruption. But in the long term, we again start living together and coexisting with the technology. So be it a calculator, be it Microsoft Excel, be it the dawn of ERP, and now machine learning and then AI, right? So anytime any of these technologies came out, we always initially felt threatened, but later it became a tool, right? To enhance our productivity, to help us live better lives, and to help us live balanced lives, right? Because, for example, 2 days ago, I got a 180-page PDF document related to global contracts. And I had to figure out what is relevant to, because we are one of 118 companies of the YKK group. And the only other way 2 years ago would have been for me to print out the 180 pages, read all 180 pages. But 2 days ago, I just put it into a LLM and just got the brief summary, and I was home in time to play with my daughter. So technology does make things easier.
Sustainability is a major focus when running a business these days, sir. So what is your company doing to stay sustainable and help the planet?
So YKK, being part of a $10 billion privately held organization, of course, we take sustainability very, very seriously. And like I said, one of our stated mission is also to create a better society, which we cannot do without sustainability. So very recently in India, Bhoruka, we have now applied for an audit called ESG, which is Environmental, Social and Governance. And we have just been awarded the bronze medal from EcoVadis for our ESG certification.
Congratulations.
So thank you. So this not only looks at environment, but also the impact, the social impact, the governance impact, right? So for example, for social, they not look at fair wages, but they look at wages better than fair. Is it allowing the person to live a decent lifestyle, not just minimum wages, right?
Right.
So it goes one step above, which as an organization we value. Also, one of the questions on the questionnaire was that how many women who got pregnant at Bhoruka
Right.
came back to work after delivery.
Right.
So in our case, it was 8 out of 8,
Oh,
right?
wow.
So again, this is something that we really pride ourselves on, that we are a workplace where we do give you the right environment for you to grow. And just because you have a medical issue or you get pregnant or something does not mean that you can never come back, right? So these are the kind of social issues, the governance issues, the environment issues that we pride ourselves on.
That's wonderful, sir. I'm happy that someone is taking the right
Sure.
direction in that.
Now we are trying to introduce a long, what is it called, paternity leave as well for the fathers, because being a Japanese company, in fact, Japan has the longest paternity leave in the world. I think it's like 6 months or 7 months.
Wow.
But in India, this concept of paternity leave does not exist.
True.
And I cannot say lucky because it happened during COVID, but my daughter was born during COVID, and I got to spend at least 1 month with her. And that made me thinking that if I value it so much, of course, everyone else will also value it. Right. So now we are working very hard to introduce paternity leave, longer paternity leaves at Bhoruka as well.
That's wonderful to hear, sir. What general skills do you look for in an employee, sir?
I mean, I can answer this, but I don't want to sound controversial. Not controversial, but very honestly speaking, everything that we spoke about, like I want the employee to have a sense of purpose. Right. I want the fresher to understand how they can contribute, right? Not have the sense of entitlement.
Right.
But what I really feel in terms of the general skill, in addition to points that we have already covered, and this is something that I say to all universities and all students I meet, I'm like really, really focused on developing basic, written skills. Right. One thing I've noticed in all my experience, I must have interviewed more than 1,000 students in the last, 14 odd years. Right. There is a difference between written English and spoken English. Understand those differences. Right. Master your any productivity suite, whether it's Microsoft, whether it is Google, whether it is any other software. At least by the time you're going to your first job, you should be able to master a productivity suite, right? And the third thing would be to have at least basic understanding of any spreadsheet software, right? And of course, your presentation skills, right? So these things are very, very important. And last, but definitely not the least, is how you dress, how you behave, right? How you speak. For example, we had certain freshers who joined us, who, despite issuing a dress code, they thought it's okay to walk in with, not formal shoes, or not formally groomed. But always keep in mind that there's someone always watching you, right? And when the time for that increment comes, or when the time for promotion comes, people say, "Oh, but I did everything great, and why am I not getting anything?" But all these other factors, matters.
Right, discipline matters.
Yeah, discipline matters, how you behave matters, your sense of purpose matters, right? And having that basic skill of presentation, productivity software, general problem solving, good written English skills, all these matters.
With ChatGPT replacing intelligence in this day and age, I feel like this is some good advice that people should definitely listen to. What or who was your biggest motivation, sir?
So my biggest motivator was my ego.
Oh.
And I'll explain why, right? If I'm doing something, whether it is studying or sports or work, right? I don't want to be in a situation where I go back to my mentor or professor or boss and they say, you didn't do a good job, right? Or if you're younger, they sort of are disappointed with you, or they scold you, or they're not happy with you. That hurts me. It hurts my ego, right? I don't want to be in a position where someone looks at me and says, you didn't give it your best. You did give your best, but external circumstances overpowered you. That is okay, right? So I think the biggest motivator for me has been my own ego, right? Second has been the family members of my team members, which I mentioned earlier, right? So, for example, a few weeks ago, as a Christmas, we invited all the staff at our company, and this time with their family, right? And one of the things I told while I was speaking at this event, I asked each of our staff member to look at each other's family members, right? And I asked them that now you have seen each other's family, right? They have seen your family. Next time you come to work on Monday and make a decision or a project or an activity, think the impact that you will have not just on yourself or just on your team, but also on the family of other team members or other staff in the organization, right? Your activity is going to influence that child. Your activity is going to influence that staff's spouse. So I think that has been my second biggest motivator. That what I do is not just for me and my family, but for many, many families who are dependent on decisions and activities that we do every day.
That's also, again, very unique, because usually people say a big personality, someone who has motivated them. But common people.
Right. Because at the end of the day, when I go to bed, the last person or the first person you look at is yourself in the mirror, right? Because I wake up very early, so my wife and daughter don't get up that early. So the only person I look at is me in the mirror. And I want to go to work that day knowing that the previous day I gave it my best, and that today also I will give it my best. Right? So I think ego, people always say, oh, ego is a bad thing. But I believe that ego is a very, very powerful motivator if used in the right direction.
Wonderful, sir. What are your personal goals? How do you spend a day off, sir?
I mean, earlier, before my daughter was born, I used to spend a day off basically not doing anything, because I think it's important to give time, to your mind to rewind. For example, I used to initially browse a lot of social media content, spend a lot of time on, different social media channels. But I realized that if you're constantly being bombarded with information, your brain is never getting a chance to, sort of summarize, distill, and give you insights. And the moment I started doing that is totally cutting myself off with anything, suddenly you have a thought pop up in your mind, which otherwise would not have, because of the clutter and the sound. So I think my basic way of spending a day off is simply to not do much. And now with my daughter being born, I try to spend as much time with her as possible, and just playing in the house or going for her favorite food or something like that.
Wonderful. For people who say that you should always be productive, you should never take a break, would that be your advice? Give yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I come from a manufacturing company background, so there is no way any of my, even machines, there's no way any of the machines are running 24/7, right? We have a planned maintenance shift or maintenance hours schedule. So if a machine needs that, I think there's no way a human can survive by being productive 24/7.
What is the future trend in jobs generally, and how can we as students prepare for them, sir?
So, again, as I mentioned earlier, future trends, anybody can look it up, right? So, of course, AI and various other technologies, and work from home or work from anywhere, and these are all the trends, right? But any trend, even 100 years ago, right? For example, when the first vehicle was introduced, that was a trend. When the first calculator, like I said, that was a trend. So we just need to understand one thing, that trends will keep coming and going, and that is, a continuous path. And every time a new trend comes in, it will disrupt the existing trend and make way for the new trend. So as students, all we can do is understand and accept that trends will happen, new technology will come, or new processes will come, it will disrupt. But how do you, persevere? How do you understand that this is the way of life, and, go about yourself? I mean, go about what you're doing. I think that is key.
Wonderful, sir. Could you give 3 tips to students who aspire to become successful like you, sir?
So I think the first tip I would give is, time management, right? Because time management, as I mentioned earlier, is very, very important. The second tip that I would give students is to always think one step ahead, right? For example, what I really mean by this is I was at a restaurant in Mumbai last month, and I ordered a ice Americano, right? So it's just ice, black coffee with ice. And the server who made it, so she got my black coffee with the ice in it. And even before I was about to sip it, she said, "Sir, do you need more ice?" Right? And I could look at it and think that it needs more ice. And I didn't have to ask her. She knew that she has not done her best. Right? Otherwise, she would not have asked me, "Do you need more ice?" even before I sipped it, right? But something stopped her from going that extra mile or doing that additional effort of putting more ice. But she realized it. Luckily for her, she realized it. But most students or most of us don't, right? We know that we can do one step better, but we don't, right? We restrain ourselves because of any reason. So my second advice is always think through what you're doing, and if you do realize that you have not done your best, rectify, right? So this is the second most important. Third is value, right? How do you create value, right? Whether you join a company, whether it's your team, whether it's the whole organization, whether it's your family, whether it's your friends, right? You need to be creating value to be able to succeed. And value, as I have understood, is basically this concept, right, where the willingness to pay for a certain product or a certain service is higher than the price. For example, if you're wearing a watch which is 5,000 rupees, but after owning that watch for 3 months, you say that, oh, even if they charge me 6,000, I would have paid 6,000, right? So that watch has created value of 1,000, right? So this is what you need to keep in mind, that whatever role that you take on, whatever job, whatever department or company or anywhere, always figure out how you are going to create positive value. So I think these are the three things I would advise to all students out there.
How important is networking in your career, sir? And how do students develop their own networks?
So, one of the things, as I mentioned earlier, we are still people to people. It's no longer people to AI or AI to AI. So I think networking is really, really important. Whether it be it in your personal life or professional life or, student life or work life or sports life. So I think, everybody knows networking is important, right? I have not come across any argument where we say networking is not important. And some of the innovative ways, again, coming back to technology, right? Like the students now, I think, are living in the best time possible. I mean, imagine your grandfather networking. How would he or she, grandfather or grandmother networking, right? How would they network? Or imagine a businessman in the 1700s trying to network. There's no social media, there's no LinkedIn, there's no email. I think even the post was just getting started, right? So the only way you network is by traveling, by going around, by meeting someone, and then there's no way to follow up, right? Today, networking is at your fingertips, right? You can even automate networking now with all the chat GPTs and AI models out there. So I think there's really no excuse to not networking. And innovative ways, I think what you're doing as an example is one of, a great innovative way to network, right? So my advice to other students would also be to figure out, innovative ways to network, because if you do the same thing that others are doing, again, there's no differentiation, right? So like I said, like this example of you conducting interviews is a wonderful example of networking and also doing it in an innovative way.
What is your advice to students on time management, sir?
Yeah, so time management, has been one of my favorite subjects. I have studied and also written about it extensively.
I read your article about it, sir.
Right. So I think time management is really the most important thing to living a balanced and successful life. So and again, I don't have some out of the world, complicated time management tips. Like what I do, I can share, right? So the first thing I do is I keep my phone on silent all the time. I have no WhatsApp notification. I have no SMS notification. I have no email notification, right? I check my messages, my notifications when I want, right? Not the other way around. Because I see often like many people moving around and their phones are just pinging non-stop. And even when they're talking to someone, they have to look at the phone, right? Even when they're trying to do in a presentation, right, they have to look at the phone. So I think that is very, very important. Second is, I think you have to have a routine, right? And that you must not stray. For example, I have a very fixed routine, what time I sleep, what time I get up, and whether it's a weekday, a weekend, or a holiday, I stick to the same routine. And of course, this has a lot of physiological benefits as well, but definitely it helps in your time management. Third, I would say, and this is great if you can start young, is make a calendar of your upcoming schedule, right? I plan my calendars 1 month in advance. So for example, my entire January month is already planned. Which day of the month I'm going to be in office, which day I'm going to be in which city, right? Which day I'm have my family event. So everything is pre-planned. And then I share this plan with my closest family members and friends and work, right? And with modern technology, it's very easy to share. So for example, my mother the other day was trying to invite me for a dinner of her friends, but she opened the shared family Apple calendar and she saw that I'm not going to be there, right? So she didn't have to call me and say, where are you? Will you be here next Saturday? Will you, right? So it saved her the time and it saved me the time, right? So I think making your calendar, sharing it in advance is very, very important for time management. And last but not the least is setting boundaries, right? So again, with my customers, for example, I don't pick up calls after 5:30 p.m., right? And initially, of course, they got agitated and they were like, how can you not pick up customers as king, right? Blah, blah, blah. But after a couple of months, they were like, oh, please don't call Rajat because he's not going to pick up after 5:30. But next day morning, 8:30 sharp, he will return your call or he will take action and he will do whatever it is you want. And they then start saying, I wish I could also, do this. I wish I could also spend time with my family, with my friends. So I think setting boundaries is difficult early on, but after a couple of days or weeks or months or years, the people around you will start respecting those boundaries.
Those boundaries can also be translated into something like a work ethic, right, sir? Because in Europe, they say after this time, I'm not going to work.
Yes.
But India and US, it's not that common.
Yeah, every time we have bought equipment from Europe, we have suffered because we cannot contact anyone for months on end.
Now we'll move on to the rapid fire question, sir. What is your favorite food?
Spaghetti bolognese. And I'll tell you why. Of course, spaghetti bolognese is my favorite food. But again, I like food which does not have a lot of components, right? A dry item, a curry item, a side item, because trust me, working for a Japanese company, you need to learn how to order food and eat food in less than 6-7 minutes. So again, this comes back to time management, right? So pick your favorites that help you stay on time and not make a mess around you. And if you need to suddenly rush somewhere, you can easily move the food with you. So
everything is around the work.
Yes.
If you could trade places with anyone for a day, who would it be and why, sir?
If I could trade places with anyone at the moment, I think it would be my daughter. Because,
also said the same thing.
I looked at it, I had written it before I saw, but that is the most honest answer that I could come up with, right? Because just 2 days ago, because her aunt was about to come to Mysore and she was jumping on the bed and I was like, why are you jumping on the bed? And she's like, I'm so excited my aunt is coming to Mysore. And small things make her so excited and full of curiosity. So I think I would definitely trade places with her to relive that experience of, curiosity and excitement.
We lose that childlike wonder as we grow. If you could be a superhero, who would you be, sir?
If I could be a superhero, the only person I could think of was Arjuna from the Mahabharata.
Wow.
Right? Because he started young. Even when his guru was not teaching him, he was observing and still learning. He was practicing at night by himself. He was going the extra mile. He was, supremely dedicated with that thing of, he could only see the eye of the target.
Right.
And all these qualities that we discussed, right? Purpose, perseverance, patience, he was something who exemplified it. Right. So he's not a superhero, but he is a mythological character, right? So for me, it would definitely be Arjuna.
It's very unique, sir. If you could have dinner with one celebrity, who would it be and why that celebrity?
So again, with me, it could be any celebrity who has gone through a lot, who has succeeded even though the odds were, against him or her. Right. For example, if it has to be a movie celebrity, someone less well known, like let's say now maybe he's very well known. I don't know if you've heard of Nawazuddin Siddiqui, right? So Nawazuddin Siddiqui is an actor who played a role of a beggar in his first movie with Amir Khan. I forget the name of the movie. Okay. And he's in the entire movie for maybe 4 seconds. Just somebody on the side of the road, and then Amir Khan takes him to the police station. And today, he is the leading character in some of his movies, right? And I mean, compared to other actors, he's not, as charming to look at or anything, but he has succeeded, right? So it will be people like him, who have gone through all odds and succeeded, would be someone that I would like to have dinner with.
Wonderful, sir. What one book would you recommend that everyone should read?
I mean, one of the books that has had the greatest impact on me is this book called Better, Simpler Strategy, right? Because we always go about saying what is strategy, and we have these fancy words about strategy that, this company's strategy or this person's strategy or this, is better than the other. But what really, really is strategy? I mean, reading this book made it crystal clear to me, right? So basically, strategy is creating value. And how do you create value? Of course, there are many, many ways to create value. But like I said earlier on, right? Value is when the willingness to pay is higher than the cost or the selling price of the product, right? So I think this book is one of the books I would strongly recommend everyone to read out there.
Wonderful, sir. What kind of music do you listen to?
So music with me is completely dependent on the situation, right? So when I'm working out, it has to be a upbeat, 130 beats per minute track. When I'm driving, it has to be something mellow that does not distract me from driving. Actually, while driving nowadays, I just listen to audiobooks. So the time from commuting from home to office and office to home or office to gym or gym to anywhere, I use that time very productively, either audiobooks if I'm driving that day, but if I have a chauffeur that day, then I read physical books.
Wonderful.
So I think music really depends on the situation. And at night, 10 o'clock, it's all lullabies when I'm trying to make my daughter sleep. So I've been listening to a lot of Cocomelon the last couple of months.
That's another genre on its own. What is your favorite movie, sir?
So my favorite movie, and maybe you could guess from the character that I mentioned earlier, it's not really a movie. It's more of a TV show, right? And it is the Mahabharata. Right. And this is one show that I'm 42, so I think I have watched the entire. This is the original B.R. Chopra Mahabharata, not the current one, right? The 1980s, the late 80s, early 90s B.R. Chopra original Mahabharata. I have watched it maybe already 7 or 8 times.
Wow.
And even today, I do watch certain episodes on YouTube, right? And this has had a profound impact on me, to define what are your priorities in life, what does dedication mean, what is success, right? What is leadership skills. So, I mean, I have personally learned a lot from watching this.
Wonderful, sir.
And it's been translated, I think, in more than 100 languages and throughout the world. Right. So I think anyone, anywhere can watch it.
Wonderful, sir. What is your favorite childhood memory, sir?
My favorite childhood memory is that of traveling with my parents, my brother. Right. And we were lucky enough to have a lot of travel trips, both domestically and internationally. Right. And the favorite part, of course, visiting new places and seeing new things is very exciting. But for me, the favorite part of this was the planning. So my father always made sure that I plan out the trip, right? So, and please remember that those days there was no internet. So I'm talking when I was a child in the early 90s, right? So the moment we used to reach a destination, I used to start going through all the brochures available in the hotel, call those places, make reservations, plan the itinerary, book a cab again via the phone, go to the yellow pages, figure out what is good in that city, what is not good, and this entire process of planning holidays I think got me very, very excited, because we had to plan the day-wise schedule. We had to this improved my time management skills, my planning skills, also your public speaking skills, because you have to negotiate the fares, because there was no Uber or Ola or Lyft in the US. So everything you negotiate in person, and it also helps you develop your interpersonal skills, right? And of course the regulars, seeing new places and all of that. So I think traveling was my favorite memory, and still is.
You started on your path to a CEO very young then, sir.
I think so.
What is the one thing you're still learning in your field, sir?
Everything, right? Because the pace at which things are changing now, like we are improving our processes every day. We are launching new products or services every day. And since it's about my field, even though we are not doing it, our competitors or stakeholders or partners. So I think this is something that you just go through every day, and you learn new things every day. And like I said, the theme will always be the same, right? Whatever new things come along will follow the same process. It'll be exciting, it'll be scary, it'll disrupt, and then it'll become your day-to-day tool, and then the next thing will come along. So I think we should never get scared of any new technology or new product or new competitor, and just take it piece by piece.
Always be willing to learn.
Yeah, willing to learn and willing to take it head on, and willing to not be scared of it. Just willing to embrace it, live with it, and then improvise every day, step by step.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving me the time of the day
and
for this interview. I learned a lot, and I think you gave a lot of relatable advice to the audience, and that's valuable. That's what's valuable. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I think this gave me an opportunity to re-introspect and relive the last 20 years of my life, and remember my journey from a student to where I am today. And I really hope this can help some of you out there, and even if it helps one of you, I would be grateful for that. So thank you so much.
You can check out Mr. Rajat Agarwal's blog, which is called Shoot to the Top, which is available on his website rajatagarwal.org, as well as his LinkedIn. Thank you so much for checking out this video.